or at least we're about to be. We're going to be. There's the green light. Good morning. Well, it is not Friday. It's been a weird week. We've been a little busy and had some technical difficulties over here. I apologize for Tuesday's terrible microphone issues. One bad cable, easy fix, but I didn't know it was a problem until it was already too late. Until I started getting comments in the comments section about my crappy audio. So, sorry, guys. Sorry. So, fixed that, and here we are. We're going to do something a little different today. Normally it's Totar Win Thursday, but I've got a couple of comments, and we're going to go ahead and do our normal Friday firearms show today, because this time tomorrow morning, I, because I have the biggest set of nuts you've ever heard of, am going to allow a VA doctor to peel the side of my face off and repair my badly damaged. uh, I'm having a tympanoplasty. They're going to cut a piece of fat out of the side of my head and patch it into my eardrum. It's going to be fun. So, before we get into the firearm stuff and talk about the DRTs, I do want to mention, this amuses me. There was a Democrat debate last night, and Cameron and I were doing our pre-show prep this morning, and he asked me, Chris, did you realize there was a debate last night? And by the way, brother, when you asked, it kind of sounded like you sat down to look at the news, look at the headlines, look at the hot sheets, and that's when you noticed that there was a debate last night. To be perfectly fair, I didn't realize it. I knew there was one coming up. I wasn't paying too close of attention to it because, guys, let's face it, nobody's paying real close attention to the Democrats this year. Nobody cares. These debates have had the lowest ratings for political debates since the number was tracked. And honestly, I would be surprised to find out that debates that occurred on television before the tracking of the numbers did not have higher numbers. Quite simply, there's a few factors here. The current Democrat offering, they are such nut jobs that nobody is legitimately interested in any of these candidates, except for a few radical fringe leftist authoritarians who aren't just politically interested, but they actively want to murder most Americans. Um, those are the people who are interested in these candidates. Apart from that, you have a small handful of people that just have total Trump derangement syndrome and would vote for anybody against Donald Trump because they cannot see past base party line partisanship and appreciate that this is a successful presidency. This is by every metric a successful presidency, and you don't have to bloviate that. Oh, Donald Trump's a liar. Well, I would give you some pushback on that. The only things he says that are not strictly true are bloviations. He's a braggart. Yes, he's a bit of a megalomaniac. I'm okay with that, but he's inarguably successful as a president on every metric that you can argue, ex- with one caveat: he was wrong on bump stocks. Um, and I honestly think that on the bump stock question, where he was wrong, he got that one wrong because he made the mistake of believing that Democrats are reasonable human beings that can be negotiated with, and that the bump stock ban was a reasonable concession that would not be a paver on the walking path to absolute confiscation. Unfortunately, he got that one wrong, and the problem with getting something like that wrong is precedence. Now, in the future, after Donald Trump's second term is over and eventually there's another Democrat in the White House, and we all forget how the massive success of the United States has been a result of keeping Democrats as far away from the levers of power as humanly possible. And both the House and Senate are blue at the same time that the White House is blue again. Donald Trump will be cited as they will go out of their way to talk about what a wonderful conservative president he was, as they compare him to another conservative hopeful to paint the other one as a monster. Just like with Ronald Reagan. When Reagan was running for president and while Reagan was president, the Democrats called him every name in the book. They said he was insane. They said he probably had Alzheimer's. Oh, he's got his finger on the button. He's going to start World War III, and on and on and on and on. All the same crap they say about Trump with exactly as much fervor and hatred, just with a less prolific press. They will point to Donald Trump. They will talk about his great successes and what a great and wonderful conservative he was, and then point to, and he did bump stock bans, which means that gun confiscation is a good idea and that Republicans should agree with it. The bump stock ban was a mistake on orders of magnitude. But apart from that, old boy's doing damn good. Now, the debate last night went largely unwatched. It's not just that people don't care. That's a big part of it. These Democrats, nobody reasonable is getting excited about any of them. But more importantly, the debate was not highly publicized. Because the fact of the matter is this. The Democrat National Committee and the American Press Corps are terrified that the American people will hear these men speak. Well, these men, and the Indian.
And Klobuchar.
But we repeat ourselves.
Yeah, apparently she's got a nasty habit of yelling at her staff and throwing things at them if they make even the most minor of mistakes.
And the whole eating her salad with a fork thing, it's anecdotal. But it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, and apparently this was the debate to watch. Like, they're all pissed that they changed the rules for Bloomberg to get into the debate. So apparently Elizabeth Warren opened up by taking swipes at a billionaire who says misogynistic things about lesbians, and then went, but I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mike Bloomberg. And they were off from that point forward. Because apparently a few days ago, some of the candidates were asked by a Spanish television station, what's the name of the current Mexican president? And like a bunch of them didn't know. Only Pete Buttigieg, Buttigieg, whatever, knew Mayor Pete. And so he's like talking down to Amy Klobuchar for not knowing the answer to the question. And apparently it was quite the train wreck. And I'm sorry I missed it, but the last several of those debates I've watched have just been like painful to get through because it's Bernie Sanders. Oh, let me be clear. If we don't get our act together, and Joe Biden not entirely being sure where he is and who he's debating, and Elizabeth Warren perpetually sounding like, I just got done with a 2-hour session at the gym. And it's just been the same thing over and over and over again. And apparently they're all pissed that Bloomberg just bought his way on the stage.
Yeah, she always sounds like she just ran over from somewhere to tell you something really important. Like she sounds, it's not just like she's out of breath, but as if she's out of breath because she just sprinted over some great distance because she had world-shattering news to deliver.
Yeah, when movies and TV shows portray uh, a kid with asthma, they talk and breathe the way Elizabeth Warren talks and breathes. Like it's just
And I'm
oh
gonna get me a beer. God,
yeah, that wasn't pandering at all. Look,
no.
I'm normal just like you. I even have beer in my fridge. The best part of that was when she's like, "Hey, honey, do you want a beer?" She's talking to her husband. Like, God, it was so forced and awkward. But anyway, train wreck of the Democrat debate. We're already 10 minutes in, and we haven't even actually talked about the good news.
Wow. So, man shot and killed. Woman defended herself in Chunchula shooting. I think it's Chunchula. It's got to be Chunchula. It can't be pronounced in traditional Spanish enunciation because, well, it's Alabama. So, I'm not even going to read the older updates because those are, well, all that's covered in this story. Uh, Mobile County Sheriff's Office says a man was shot and killed on Cleburne Court in Chunchula Monday after a woman claims he attacked her with a rifle. Deputies found Johanna Harbison outside the home bleeding from her head, where apparently her boyfriend David Bailey had assaulted her with an AK 47. I want to say something about the AK 47 situation in just a minute, but first, according to the press release, Harbison told deputies that Bailey hit her in the face during an altercation inside the home. Harbison armed herself with a 9mm handgun and shot Bailey in the chest. He was pronounced dead on the scene. That's a DRT. Now, it does say that this case will go to a grand jury, um, unless there's a lot of mitigating evidence between now and then. I would tend to suspect we're talking about a woman who killed an armed man who, by all accounts, namely hers, assaulted her with a firearm. Uh, dollars to donuts. This one gets swept right out, and she's not charged with anything. It's probably, it looks like clear cut case of self defense. Now, the AK-47 rifle, um, I find that to be a little dubious. You know, often, like with the mass shooters last year and at the WalMarts, one of them, and this is something that you hear often from the press where they're trying to make it sound worse than it is. They'll say AK-47 style rifle, and they say that because it's not an AK-47. And to say AK-47 style takes a weapon that is almost unrelated to the AK-47, as in it's not the same caliber, it's not a fully automatic weapon, it's probably not even Russian made. Um, Probably has a smaller clip, probably has a shorter magazine, all that stuff. It's not an AK-47. Here they say AK-47 rifle. And the reason I find that interesting in this article is we're talking about ostensibly some civilians.
Covering breaking news this morning in Mobile.
No,
A man is
I
dead.
don't. I don't want to hear your breaking news. I just read it. I'm doing this, not you. Um, with the it says AK-47. So if it's actually an AK-47, then we're talking about somebody who is either an otherwise known criminal engaged in substantial criminal activity, or we're talking about somebody who has been through the extra level of background checks to have the federal firearms license, essentially to own that weapon as a civilian in the United States. You have to be licensed as a firearms dealer. So I find that AK-47 rifle there to be a dubious claim.
Well, I mean, he could have
Not
inherited it
impossible.
from a family
Not
member.
impossible, but improbable.
Um, and it's also entirely possible that um, this is just bad reporting. Oh, it looks like an AK-47, so I'm just going to call it an AK-47. In fact, if I had to put money on something, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's a
probably.
bad write-up.
Um,
So that's one
and I'm sorry.
DRT.
Part of the point that got lost in there is normally when you see AK-47 in an article like this, you'll see AK-47 style rifle. They'll use the word style because they want to use the language AK-47 even though it's incorrect. And here they didn't use the word style, so which suggests to me that yeah, either this writer doesn't know what's going on, is just wrong about it, or there's a little more to Mr. David Bailey than he's dead on the scene.
Yeah, and that's probably part of why this is going to a grand jury. If for no other reason, this is pretty clearly a domestic violence situation. And while I feel like a lot of times the whole domestic violence concept has been over sensationalized, I think taking a couple of extra steps with care anytime there is a domestic violence situation, especially if it results in somebody being dead, yeah, okay, fine, send that to a grand jury.
Yeah.
Because the grand jury is going to decide if there is enough there for there to be a prosecution made out of it. It's what the grand jury system is supposed to be for. So, anyhow.
All right. And let's do we got back to back out of Alabama. It was a busy week in in Mobile, Alabama, around Mobile. So Birmingham, police in Birmingham said that a man was shot and killed while attempting a robbery early Sunday morning. And wow, conducting a homicide investigation according to Sergeant Rod Malden. An off-duty officer was working an extra security detail when shots were fired at an address. Upon investigation, the officer discovered the subject laying on the ground suffering from a gunshot wound. Fire and rescue responded to the scene, and the wounded subject was transported to the UAB hospital. I don't know what UAB stands for. I imagine that A is Alabama. But
University of Alabama Hospital?
Maybe.
This isn't Birmingham. Well, no, but that's in Tuscaloosa. Anyhow.
Anyway, but pronounced deceased at the hospital. So this isn't a DRT. This is a DOT. But that's okay. We still got a bad guy dead at the scene. Preliminary investigation suggests the subject approached a person in a robbery attempt, which resulted in the subject being shot. This is an ongoing investigation. After reading this one again, it looks like they're pretty sure that this was a clean shoot with the subject attempting a robbery. Now, I do want to point out that in stark contrast to similar stories that we've done out of California, Hawaii, other liberal states, the criminal here is referred to as the subject. I would have also accepted suspect, but the man who was shot by a person defending himself against an armed robber is not being referred to as the victim in this article. And for that online editor, I applaud you.
Yep.
We got one more. Shoo, buddy.
So that's one DRT, one DOT, and one double DRT.
So, out of Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas, including the homicides. Yay! To be clear, even in self-defense, the killing of a man is homicide. But that doesn't make it murder. I'm talking to you, Sheriff Levitt. Just because it's a homicide doesn't mean it's a murder. Police say people living in a northeast Austin apartment shot 3 people breaking into their home, killing 2 of them. A man and woman died Tuesday night in the attempted home invasion. The third was shot, a man who was treated for non-life-threatening injuries. That's a pity. Police say the shooting took place inside the unit at the Creekside on Palmer Lane apartment complex. Police say people inside the unit fired the shots but did not say who they were, how many people fired a gun, or how many shots were fired. It's Texas, man. Let's be real. What happened is a dude had his lady friend over, and they were down for a little Netflix and chill, and then the door busted open, and they both drew out 3 pistols and they each simultaneously fired all 3 pistols at
juggling them through the air.
Ah! Looked like Doc Holliday at Cirque du Soleil.
Why does anybody commit any violent crime in Texas?
I don't know.
Why would you even try?
Oh.
I mean, like, seriously, this is, in a situation like this, you almost wonder who covered who. Like, did she actually get the gun first and then he covered her? Or did he get the gun first and she covered him? Like, it's because they shot all 3 of them and 2 of them died. Like, this went bad for these criminals.
Now, in fairness, it happened in Austin, Texas. Unlike the rest of Texas, Austin is pretty blue. They've got a Democrat mayor, all that. So, I mean, in fairness, anywhere that you have Democrats in charge, you have higher crime rates.
And Democrats tend to be in charge of cities. That's weird. Whatever.
I can explain how that happens. But anyway, so it was a good week for the right side of justice.
So that's 1 DOT and 3 DRTs. One of them a double DRT. Impressive. Rule number 2.
Rule number 2.
But yeah, sorry we're gonna miss you guys tomorrow. Sorry this has been a crazy week for us, but it's been a crazy week for us, and that's all I got.
All right, brother. Well, y'all be safe out there. We'll see you Monday morning, probably. We'll see how my surgery and recovery goes, but should see you Monday morning. Y'all have a great weekend. Be safe out there. It's time to go to work. I mean it. Subscribe.